If you've been Catholic for a little while, you may have heard somebody say this phrase: in Rome, they think in centuries. And I actually think that that is true, but we should not misunderstand the truth that's contained when people said that. You may immediately and rather naively think that everybody in the Roman Curia is a super genius who is capable of thinking in centuries, and that is actually impossible. No human being has the capacity to plan in centuries right there. But I do think there's a deep truth contained in that is worth paying attention to. And in order to understand this, we'll just take a look at aspect of one incident and one character from the Roman Curia and one principle of how the Roman Curia tends to operate, and see if that can help us understand a little bit more about the institutions and how they work. So I don't think the details of this are necessary, but there is a link in the description if you want to get the full story and the information that I'm operating on. And what it is it's the story of Archbishop Peña Parra. He held a very influential position in the Roman Curia. He had a lot of direct power and a lot of direct access to the Roman pontiff, is usually considered somewhat equivalent to a chief of staff for the Roman pontiff. And he, there was definitely a lot of things that we would look at and say, that was a bad decision. That was a bad idea. He did these things poorly. And you can read all about that in the article I have posted below. Now, if he were, let's say, the general manager of the New York Yankees, he would be fired for that sort of behavior, and perhaps there might even be some criminal prosecution involved as well. So that would be the way that we would handle that situation here in America. But in Rome, he got a promotion. Promotion without much responsibility. He is going to become the new nuncio to Italy. And if you don't know what a nuncio is, that's a combination of ambassador to the local government and representative to the bishops of that country. So what does that mean that he's the nuncio to Italy? It sounds like it would be an important job, but it's actually not as important as, say, the nuncio to the United States of America, or to France, or to Ireland, or another large Catholic population, the Philippines, because given the sensitivity of relations between the Vatican City state and the state of Italy, which the Vatican City is entirely dependent on, usually things that involve a dispute between them are handled immediately at the top, and the Roman Pontiff has a special relationship with the Italian Bishops' Conference. So this move is widely viewed as a face-saving promotion, that this is, not him being given more responsibility. This is him being given less responsibility with a fancier title and being put on track to become a cardinal of all things. This is not the American way of operating. What's really important to know about this is, this sort of a maneuver in the Roman Curia is a very common thing. It's a very expected thing. It's not a thing that's written down anywhere. You won't find this in Praedicata Evangelium. You won't find this in the rules and regulations of the internal governance of the Roman Curia. This is all just a tradition. This is all just the spirit of how that place operates. And I think operating in that manner has certain advantages that we should probably pay attention to. What advantage comes from allowing your senior leadership, if they make really bad changes, having a tradition where they just get given a fancy title and they continue to draw their salary and they continue to be able to save face, but without being taken out of a position of real authority and real power there. Well, this favors stability. This favors stability for an institution. Like think of how few institutions here in the United States of America are older than 100 years old. There's a lot of things that last 20 years, that last 30 years. The Roman Curia has been around for something like 2,000 years, a couple orders of magnitude longer than anything that we have here in the United States. And I'm not saying that nothing here will last that long. Like how long will the New York Yankees last? I think they actually have quite a bit of staying power, quite a bit of sticking power, even though general managers may come and go. But it's going to be very few things that can last for 2,000 years. But the institution of the Roman Pontiff and the Curia that assists him in the governance of the Universal Church, that's very stable. We've had some form of that for centuries now, even though it has these gradual changes and these gradual shifts. That's been around for longer than anyone can remember. And I think there's also, as part of this stability, of the institution that's afforded by this, it also gives great leaders an opportunity to govern well. There's something deeply wrong about only thinking in terms of quarters, and I know none of us can think in centuries, but maybe we can think in terms of 5, 10, maybe 15 years to be able to govern something well, to be able to lead an institution in that kind of a time frame. You can certainly do that. This constant obsession with quarterly bonuses, quarterly performances, and if you miss enough quarterly benchmarks, then you're going to be out. That's going to put certain incentives on your leadership there to deliver short-term results there. But if you've got this kind of stability where that no matter how badly you screw up, you're still going to have a place in the hierarchy, and you're still going to have a title, and you're still going to have something to do, even if it's not as much authority as you might like, that you'll always have this ability to save face. That gives you an awful lot of freedom to be able to conduct your business in perhaps a more flexible way. So this, certainly this ethos, this spirit, this tradition of not firing and shaming people who screw up, but rather giving them a promotion into obscurity, that kind of grinds me the wrong way. But I am an American, and I have not been imbued with the Roman ethos. And the Roman ethos has been around a lot longer than America has. And so maybe I should just observe this with a little bit of humility, maybe understanding that perhaps there's a certain delay in justice in the Roman way of accounting for things, but perhaps that serves the greater good more than anything else. Perhaps we can tolerate a certain amount of mediocrity in leadership, tolerate a certain delay in justice. God will always bring justice in the end, for the sake of the stability of the institution. I think a useful case that we might want to consider would be the case of Amazon. Now, as many of you may know, Amazon, most of its departments for decades, for something like 15 or 20 years, operated at a loss. The actual delivery of goods that was operating at a loss for a very long time. The way the whole thing stayed afloat is that the Amazon Web Services, you're renting server space and server time from them, that funded everything else in Amazon. And what were they doing? Were they just blowing their money? No, because Bezos owned the company. He understood that he could build his own logistics network, funded by his Amazon Web Services programs, build his own logistics network, and kind of crush all the other competition. And that would put him in a position to become quite obscenely profitable. And if you look, I think it was sometime in 2022 or 2023, that's when all of the divisions of Amazon, or at least the main divisions that we interact with, in addition to the Amazon Web Services, started making a lot of money there. Kind of the infrastructure buildup phase of their logistics department was complete, and now they could begin reaping the profit that they had invested so long in. That's like a 15 to 20 year plan right there. If you're only thinking quarterly, no CEO could pull that off. But if you give somebody that guarantee of stability, then maybe, just maybe, they'll have the capacity to do something good. I look at especially Archbishop Kennedy, who's in charge of the disciplinary section of the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. He is well respected by canonists across the world. He is a man of deep integrity, and he is in a position to make sure that there's good governance in the Roman Curia, to the point where he's actually somewhat responsible for Peñapera's fall. Peñapera, and you'll probably read that in the article posted down below, was trying to basically get a priest who conducted himself in a abhorrent manner with minors, trying to just get him off the hook. And Archbishop Kennedy, in a very unexpected move for the Roman Curia, said, "You're completely incompetent to do that. My department has the sole competency for this, and we have ordered him to be laicized," which is the strongest punishment that we have for clerics in the church's canonical system. And he was able to do that, I think, because he knew that his position was stable, that he was not just going to be arbitrarily fired. And maybe for the good men who can make good use of that, it's worth it to have that. So really, Rome thinks in centuries, not individuals in Rome, not Machiavellian super geniuses in Rome, but the institution and the ethos that enlivens that institution, that ethos that you get trained into and you lean into as a young official. That part thinks in centuries. And that right there is something for us to ponder and consider. So hopefully you found this useful. If you think I'm wrong about something, make sure that you leave a comment and let me know. Otherwise, have a blessed day, and God be with you.